NFL Draft. Carolina Panthers select
Trophy Chase, Tucson, Arizona.
with the second pick in the 2023 NFL Draft. The Houston Texans select
Cody Smith, Houston, Texas. The fantasy draft room is now on the clock.
Welcome to the Fantasy Draft Room. I am Chase. With me, as always, my man Cody. What do we got in store for the people today?
You know, we've taken a little bit of a break after the NFL draft. We've taken a step back, and we're getting our final rankings out for these rookies. We're going to be doing the quarterback series today. We're going to get you the running backs, wide receivers, tight ends in the coming week or two. And so we want to really put our final stamp on this rookie class, giving you our ranks of the quarterbacks as it currently stands today.
Yeah, man. So we'll dive into that here. Again, please make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Comment down below. Let us know your thoughts as well. But we are going to dive into quarterbacks, and this might sound kind of simple at this point, but Anthony Richardson is going to be our 101/102 in Dynasty Start or in rookie drafts. And then we're going to have a little bit of conversation about him being the number one quarterback. So yeah, A-Rich here as our first quarterback overall.
Off the board. Yeah. I mean, we're playing fantasy football, right? And the rushing upside that Anthony Richardson does obtain, it's just elite. We see it, the top six quarterbacks as it currently stands. I think Joe Burrow is probably the one who has the least amount of rushing upside in our highest rankings of the quarterback position right now in terms of all of these guys throughout all the NFL right now. And so you have to have an element of that in your game if you really want to be an elite fantasy football contributor right now. And the one that has that by far the most in this class is Anthony Richardson with that upside, the most athletic quarterback that we've seen come through possibly ever in the NFL. And so being paired with that second offense in Indianapolis with weapons there, with a, coming back and probably healthier offensive line, a little bit of improvements there. They've got Josh Downs with him as well, who's getting a lot of hype in the, rookie mini camp buzz right now. JT coming back and healthy for another year. Michael Pittman. It looks like a really good offense. It's got weapons, and we'll see if he can, get a little bit better with the consistency. He just needs a little bit of experience in my mind. And he has the ability to probably start as close to his day one of this season and really take over the job throughout this offseason. Gardner Minshew, as much as we like him as a backup, he's probably not going to be anything, definitely not long-term, and he might not even be the starter week one. So Anthony Richardson, I don't think there's too much of an argument here for fantasy football purposes. QB1.
If he can just be as bad as Justin Fields, right? Like if he can just be that bad, I'm going to take him in fantasy. He's going to be a top 10 quarterback for you, and he's going to have some smash weeks. Joking, of course, hopefully he is better than Justin Fields, or he at least has a little bit more, better passing efficiency. But if he can be close to what Justin Fields is on the ground as a rookie, that's going to be huge for fantasy teams. And that floor or that rushing upside, I guess, is how we want to look at it, can vault him into what could be like the top four of overall quarterbacks. Like he could be up there with the Jalen Hurts, the Josh Allens and Patrick Mahomes, the Joe Burrows, if things start to click for him in the passing game. But it's that rushing floor that is going to make him fantasy relevant as a rookie. And there's no one else in this class that has that, which is why we got to have him here at the number one spot.
Yeah, nobody else has it. I mean, as much as people even want to fade Daniel Jones right now, I mean, his 700-yard floor that he's put up year over year keeps him fantasy relevant. I mean, that's why he was a top 10 quarterback overall last year. And so when you have that type of a floor, and I mean, Anthony Richardson even has a much higher rushing ceiling than that as well. I think that's probably closer to his rushing floors, minimum like 500 yards in this offense, as long as he's staying healthy and playing all 17. I don't know how he wouldn't get to that point with what we assume that he will be able to do in this offense. He doesn't need to do too much passing, 2,000 yards and 500, 600, 700 rushing yards. You're going to be at least probably in the top 15 quarterbacks. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, but gotta love the upside. QB1.
Yep, absolutely. So Wrapping things up with Anthony Richardson, we go into, I guess, what I would consider a tier break. I think number 2 for me is kind of a bit of a gap down, but Bryce Young at number 2, maybe he's a little closer than I'm giving him credit for. But just not having that rushing potential kind of makes me, have him as a clear number 2. Going to the Carolina Panthers, he was the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. There's not really any major concerns about him other than his size, but he has proven that he can do it at Alabama, in the SEC, against SEC competition. I don't see his size being a big issue. I think my bigger concern is the Panthers GM coming out and saying that they don't want to invest in the wide receiver position. And I get that they're going to go after value. They're going to try and find, every year's Adam Thielen. Maybe they'll spend some more second round picks, third round picks on wide receivers. So they do have Mingo, you got DJ Chark, Adam Thielen, and Terrace Marshall as kind of your main weapons there. And if that's what they're going to be kind of rolling out year in and year out, I don't know. It does give me reason for pause on like what that offense is going to be.
Yeah, I think he's probably one of the safest floor quarterbacks other than Anthony Richardson's rushing floor that he has. I think Bryce Young has the best NFL just in terms of overall play floor out of any of the quarterbacks in this class. But like you were saying, if they are going to try to implement this kind of, hey, let's just kind of dish the ball around, probably play a little bit more through the defense and just rely on a little bit of efficiency out of our quarterback, not really bring in any true alpha playmakers or anything like that, unless one of them just happens to develop over the rookie contract, it does give you concerns for what the upside of this offense could be over the coming years. And so I do think that's why there's a large separation, not a large separation, but there's a pretty good separation, in my opinion, between Anthony Richardson and these next 2 quarterbacks, the first one being Bryce Young here. But the number 1 overall quarterback, he's going to have time. He's going to produce he might. Do you think he's starting day 1? I don't think there's any way you're not rolling out the number 1 overall pick week 1.
Yeah, I feel like the way that that team has been set up, they moved up for him. They're going to take him and they're going to put him in day 1. I don't see a reason why they wouldn't. So perfectly fine with that too. And I think that's great that he's going to have the ability to get out there. Love his accuracy and what he can do with his placement. I'm really excited to see what Bryce Young can be. But again, upside concerns, like what could he end up being? He would have to throw, 600 times a season in order to really crack that top 8, in my opinion. So a little bit cause for concern as far as upside goes. But yes, he has a safe floor. I think he's going to be a locked in QB2 and probably a higher end of that bunch right out the gate. So I don't see anything else you want to touch on with him before we jump into number 3.
No, I think the conversation's pretty much the same with our number 3, and that's going to be CJ Stroud. I don't think there's any question about the top 3. I mean, you can shake up the order if you want to, but this is the way that we have them going: Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. But a lot of the same narrative that we just talked about with Bryce Young is going to be the same type of narrative with CJ Stroud. The weapons there aren't very good. You don't really have too much built around him, and you have the stink in the fantasy community and just NFL circles of what the Houston Texans are, as they've kind of gone into the dumpster fire franchise mode over the past couple of years here and really kind of turned things around for the worse. So we'll see if this change with D'Amico Ryans and CJ Stroud can really be the thing to bring them out of that. But there's not a lot of weapons here either to really vault CJ Stroud up into an elite tier. We haven't seen him be a truly efficient runner or effective runner at the collegiate level. Maybe that changes at the NFL level, but I don't think that's really going to be a focal point of his game. I think you're probably looking for sub 300 yards every single year. So while you might have a little bit of a bump, I think you're probably sitting around that 150 to 250 yards year over year. And it gives you a little bit of a floor, but not too much to really vault you up. You're going to be relying on the efficiency of the arm and the efficiency of the offense to really get you the fantasy points. And so it caps the ceiling, in my opinion, unless he can truly just be a elite difference maker at the position at the next level. And I'm not really willing to put that stamp on him just yet.
Yeah, I do like CJ Stroud. I like, what his ability is, being a ball placement specialist. And we've seen, we saw what he did against Georgia, and that was just a miraculous performance. And I know people put probably too much excitement on that one game, but he did play very well against, one of the best defenses in the country. A lot of those players went on to play in the NFL, but you're talking about an offense with Dalton Schultz, good tight end outlet, that feels good. But Nico Collins, yeah, you got Tank Dell in the draft. It sounds like that was the big exciting pick. John Mechie, Robert Woods. Yeah, not an offense you feel great on, and then unknown with the offensive coordinator and how that's going to actually pan out. Like, what is that offense truly going to look like? But you do at least have Dameon Pierce and Devin Singletary in the backfield to rely on in the run game. So hopefully that run game is a little bit better this year, with giving someone else with Pierce. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I do feel like the range of outcomes, at least in the first year, maybe first 2 years, is just talking high end wide receiver or QB2 at best, just because the weapons aren't there, the team is bad, and they traded away their 2024 first. So I don't want to bring that up. I know you're a Texans fan, so it is what it is at this point, but that does sting for the potential of getting like a Marvin Harrison Jr. next year.
Yeah, I'm in the minority of that one as a Texans fan, though. So most people are comfortable with it. I'm not, but we'll see how it plays forward. But it does limit the upside of potentially getting a high tier weapon of like that Marvin Harrison type if they were to be that bad again. To have a high pick, in that top 5 of the draft next year, probably eliminates the chance of bringing in that type of a player for CJ Stroud to develop with next year if the wide receivers don't develop this year and the offense is really looking for somebody to come in. They're probably going to have to go the free agency route, and we've seen that that's been a pretty dead market over the last couple of years as teams just want to keep their guys. So outside of trade or draft picks, it's really hard to build up the wide receiver rooms right now. So it's all going to be about what this offense can do, how it can rebuild with this team. Hopefully they can kind of implement a San Francisco style scheme with a short passing game with some of the weapons that they do have here, a lot of the smaller underneath style guys. So I think they have a lot of the right pieces put in place. We'll just see if CJ Stroud can take this step to the next level and actually, contribute to the fantasy points as well. But quarterback 3 here off the board.
Yeah, which leads us to QB4, and I feel like there is a big gap at this point. Will Levis is quarterback 4 off the board for us, and I'm down to take him probably in that 110 range at the highest. You get those next four wide receivers off the board, or the first 4 wide receivers off the board, and then you can start looking at Will Levis. I mean, I've got Will Levis all the way down at the 202, 203 range. I've taken him in drafts. So again, that kind of range is wherever you're comfortable. But Will Levis, the thing is like the potential's there. He has the rushing ability. He has a cannon for an arm, but there's, I guess character concerns about his maturity, things like that, and mechanical issues. And people have kind of related it to Jay Cutler, but Jay Cutler made himself fantasy relevant early on in his career. I don't know if he's going to get the opportunity to do that, is the big concern with Will Levis being a Tennessee Titan with Ryan Tannehill there. But maybe a year of development. Next year, Ryan Tannehill could be gone, and then you have a Will Levis shot with that offense with Treylon Burks. But it's just a weird team, weird situation. I kind of wish they would have just traded Tannehill and maybe Will Levis, just kind of went into a mini rebuild. But what do you think about Will Levis in general?
That is the issue here, right? I think you're right on the the evaluation of where I take him in Superflex, normal formats for the most part. I think it is in that 110 to 203 range, probably where I've seen him going off and where I'm comfortable taking him as high up as that. But the issue is the fact that, one, he's not a first round quarterback. As much as, he was 33rd off the board, second pick of the second round, he's still not a first round quarterback. And so the investment that they put into him is not going to keep him around for as long if he does start to fail a little bit sooner after he does get in. I think he will get in at some point. Honestly, whether that's this season, I'm not even willing to make that bet right now. And I think that's why you do have a pretty significant tier break, because Tannehill, for as much as he's probably not a elevator of the offense, he's at least serviceable to run this. And I don't think the Tennessee Titans, as bad as we look over up and down this roster and say that it's like on the edge of just completely falling apart, the Tennessee Titans, I don't think, are a team that are going to ever really lean into a full, like, let's just tear this thing down to the bones and let's let Will Levis try to pick up the pieces and rebuild around him. I don't know if that's the path forward. So I could see Ryan Tannehill, if things go all right and they're still in kind of a playoff hunt mode, I could see Ryan Tannehill being the starter for 17 games this year if it really does go that way. And so I just don't know what the future is going to be for Will Levis. I have, there are the concerns there. I don't have as many concerns as a lot of people do. I'm not like just a complete fade on him from the pre-draft process, was never into that whole narrative. But being outside of the first round, it definitely puts a lot more concern about his future and his longevity in this offense. The questions are just making it to where he has to be a significant tier behind the first three quarterbacks.
I think the thing to note here is that they did still spend significant capital on him. They spent an early second. Like, I know it's not a first rounder. It's not top 20, not top 10, where we're like, oh yeah, we got to have this guy. But they did still spend significant capital in him, where I think he's going to get a shot. I don't know if he's going to get the leash that some of these other first rounders are going to get, but he's going to get a shot. I don't think it's this year either. So hopefully next year he's going to get his chance to play a full season. Maybe he gets the kind of Jalen Hurts treatment again, another second round quarterback that they were giving. He came in towards the back of a season and played a few games, saw some promise, and it was like, all right, you get a full year the following year. Let's see what happens. So I could see, if Tennessee's in the hunt, though, that may change things. If they're not, I could definitely see them giving Will Levis a few games at the end of 2023 and then letting him have his shot in 2024 and seeing what happens with the team. If it works out and he shows some promise, great. That's their quarterback of the future. So his longevity or his long-term, fantasy option is probably not there, but I do think he will get a full season. Whether that's, most likely that's just gonna be 2024 is the way I'm looking at it. I don't know what he's going to get this year. If anything, it's going to be limited in my opinion.
Yeah, but I don't want to completely disregard that there is a little bit of upside, right? Like there is a possibility that he's the starter week one, and a pretty decent 33% chance or whatever the number is you want to put on it that he's the starter by say week 4 or week 6. If Tannehill does come out of the gates really slow and the offense is struggling, they can make this switch at any point and as early as week 1. So there is upside there. We just don't think it's a high percentage outcome that does happen.
Yeah. So, I mean, those are really the core 4. I'd say, you have your number 1, 2, 3, and then, gap with 4. Then for us, there's a very, very large gap. Like I borderline don't even care from here on out. But, to wrap up, some of the quarterbacks that were drafted and the fact that these guys are going in rookie drafts, Hendon Hooker is going to be our QB5, getting drafted by the Detroit Lions. Just the fact that he fell in the draft, he went to a situation where the Lions really have everything at their disposal to actually win the North. So I think it's Jared Goff's year for sure. And they've already talked about extending Goff. If that happens, and they've even said Hendon Hooker is not playing for a long time, he might really not play for a very long time. Unfortunately, this is just kind of the end to what could have been a good story. The ACL tear really hurt things. He does have it come from like a gimmicky kind of offense where you only read part of the field. There was a point in time where there was optimism, but it feels like to me, Hendon Hooker is just a backup unless there's an injury.
Yeah, and I actually think there is some good upside if he does get in. We were saying that this was an offense that we wanted Anthony Richardson to go to. The narrative was that it would be the perfect spot for him to go to redshirt a year and then to really develop and grow into this offense with all of the weapons that they have. But I think that narrative has kind of started to change as people have realized that what this Lions team does really believe in with Jared Goff and the talent that they think they do have there. Like we've said, like you said, a possibility that we get a contract even before week 1 this year throughout the next couple of months as we approach the season. And if that happens, it's probably going to be, opt-outs and stuff like that where they can get out of it if things do go badly. But I think that Jared Goff, they're really looking at him as the long-term starter here. They've already said it's pretty much going to be a full redshirt year for Hendon Hooker as they were coming out, and Dan Campbell talking about him as well. Hopefully he's able to get on. I did like Hendon Hooker. I wasn't too concerned about the style of offense that he was running as other people were at Tennessee. I do like the talent still, but I just don't know what the path forward, like you said, outside of injury. All of the rest of these guys are going to be injury bets pretty much as well. And so I don't have too much of upside. I'm not drafting him in the second round of any of these rookie drafts. I didn't draft him there, and I'm almost pushing him all the way down to the fourth with the rest of these guys at this point.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. Like, they spent a third round draft pick on Hooker, and that's just not significant enough capital to really matter. I've seen him going in the back of the second, top of the third in rookie drafts, and I have zero interest in that personally. There's a lot of it. I would much rather someone else take him and allow another running back in that range to fall to me, or a wide receiver. I just don't have any interest. I really don't. Like, if he fell to me towards the back half of the third, I might consider taking him, but I don't have any shares of Hendon Hooker, and I don't think that I will, just because of the range that he's going. I can trade for him. I think that's the big thing, is barring something happening to Goff, I could trade for him. So, yeah, I mean, anything else you want to touch on with Hooker?
Unfortunately not, man. I like the prospect, and I really like the kid too. So I hope the best for him, but don't have much interest in him in terms of fantasy.
Yeah, so then that wraps up the top five. Just some honorable mentions. Clayton Tune coming up. I think we have him as our sixth one. He went in the fifth round to Arizona. The only reason he's of interest, the big thing is Kyler Murray might be out for half the season. If that's the case, where he's going to be missing a good chunk of the year, there's an opportunity for Clayton Tune to start. I don't know if that's going to happen with Colt McCoy there, but hey, there's a chance, right? Like, I think that's the whole thing, is you're just looking at guys that have an opportunity to start. And that's where, Clayton Tune, Aiden O'Connell, Stetson Bennett, like those kinds of names pop up. So, anything you want to touch on with Clayton Tune and why you love him as a prospect?
I mean, I've taken him at like the 412. There's nothing. I wasn't diving into the Clayton Tune tape all that much. You watch a couple games here and there just to kind of get the gist. But I think we kind of knew what the path forward was for a Clayton Tune type, and this is probably the best type of outcome in terms of fantasy that he could have possibly gotten coming out of the draft. He's really only got to compete with Colt McCoy. We assume that Kyler Murray isn't going to be ready for Week 1, and Colt McCoy's had his own injury concerns this offseason, where I think he was already having neck surgery, and there's a little bit of a mystery as what the recovery time has been around that one. So he'll probably be battling with Colt coming into the, throughout training camp, and getting a lot of reps here as well. So he's going to have a lot of familiarity with probably the ones going out throughout all of this process. He's probably the best shot out of all of these remaining guys to really get an opportunity to start as soon as Week 1. So that's why he's in the discussion here. The other one I think is Stetson Bennett. And then we obviously, we saw the concerns. We saw how much time Matthew Stafford missed last year. We know he's far from the perfect bill of health, and there's major concerns about that one going forward. There's been rumors floating out there that they've been trying to offload Stafford onto another team for a long portion of this offseason as well. Could be done as soon as, possibly that one still happens over the offseason as well, and they go really into that rebuild mode. And so Stetson Bennett, I think, is the next one up to really have a significant shot, an opportunity to play this offseason. Like I said, all that you're looking for with the remaining guys is the best pass forward to be able to start.
Yeah, and that's pretty much it. So Stetson Bennett, I believe, is our 7, and that's where we'll have him at. Just again, opportunity could be there. Aiden O'Connell coming in right behind there, went to the Las Vegas Raiders. Jimmy G, it's a situation where if things go downhill, maybe he gets an opportunity. But again, a very, 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 very big, like, long shot for that to happen. The other one that I kind of like, that's deeper dive, is Jaren Hall going to the Minnesota Vikings. Again, he's going to sit. This isn't a guy that's going to start this year, but Kirk Cousins is in the last year of his contract at this point, and maybe there's a chance that Jaren Hall develops and could be the quarterback of the future, or at least get a chance to start next year. But truthfully, like, I don't. Jake Hayner, DTR, Tanner McKee, like none of these names really.
Not even rostered, unless you're playing in some wild formats. The rest of them aren't even rostered. Won't even touch them at this point. Not worth the fab to pick up or the roster spot to hold.
So that pretty much wraps everything up here. The big ones of note: Anthony Richardson at 1, Bryce Young at 2, CJ Stroud at 3, Will Levis at 4, and then Hendon Hooker at 5. This is really a top 4 list. We can put Clayton Tune at 6 potentially, but yeah, like, it's really a top 5 list. Any other honorable mentions? Anything else you want to touch on here with these quarterbacks and these in our rankings here?
Not at all. It's the 4, and then I'll take a dart throw on 3. The rest of them I'm not even rostering.
Yep, I'm right there with you. So again, let us know what your thoughts are down below. Give us some comments, like, subscribe, and thank you for joining us here in the fantasy draft room.